HRN listeners. As we celebrate our 15th year, we are deepening our commitment to giving voice to the next generation of food systems storytellers, and we need your help. Our internship and fellowship programs help activate new possibilities for underrepresented and underestimated young people through experiential journalism, audio engineering, and production training. Through these unique programs, HRN helps food equity stewards build essential workforce readiness skills that expand their potential and foster economic mobility. Please consider supporting these critical programs. And with a minimum donation, you can be entered to win a dinner for two at an amazing restaurant in one of 8 cities and tickets to a concert at a great venue in one of those cities. We have incredible partners across the country who have donated, as they also share our passion for helping to educate the next generation of food systems storytellers. Check out heritageradionetwork.org/15 to donate and enter to win today. That's heritageradionetwork.org/15 to donate and enter to win today. And make sure you donate before March 31st. Thank you.
This podcast is brought to you by Vivino. Discover and buy wines wherever you are. Visit vivino.com/heritage to stock up.
Hi, I'm HRN's Executive Director, Katie Mosman-Wadler, with a preview of this week's episode of Meat and Three, our weekly food news roundup. This week's theme is youth. We'll have a report on how migrant children separated from their families at the U.S. border are being housed and fed.
Right now, what we're very worried about is just the influx of kids created by this zero-tolerance policy.
We'll also look into a program that's ensuring free summer meals for kids are only a text message away.
Summer is the hungriest time of year for a kid who may not have that safety net of school meals.
We discover a new home economics curriculum.
I'm not trying to raise a generation of chefs. I'm trying to raise a generation of nourishers who can nourish themselves.
And we meet a teen chef who's talked his way into several of New York's top kitchens.
I never try and be annoying about it, but I really want to get my foot in the door.
Tune in to this week's episode of Meat and Three, available at heritageradionetwork.org and wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Souther Teague of Amoria Margo and a co-host of The Speakeasy right here on Heritage Radio Network. You know, my favorite thing to do every week is to come here and be on the show. I have lots of jobs. I'm a very busy person, and I do this because I love it. I get to sit down and talk to all my heroes for about an hour every week. It's incredible, and I hope that you enjoy it, making a great effort to share with you. And we'd like you to share back with us. It's our summer fundraiser, and we'd love for you to donate at heritageradionetwork.org/donate. You can click on the beating heart, and you can even choose shows that you'd like to donate to specifically. And you can also choose a recurring monthly gift. And for all that, we'd be greatly appreciative. Thank you so much.
Welcome to the Grape Nation, your weekly wine journey. Our guest is Lamberto Frescobaldi. We'll talk Frescobaldi wines and Gorgona, the prison wine. We'll taste the Gorgona for our weekly wine sip. I'm your host, Sam Ben-Ruby. Stay with us for the Grape Nation on the Heritage Radio Network. We bring wine to the people. Marchese Lamberto Frescobaldi is a 30th generation winemaker and president of the Frescobaldi family winemaking dynasty in Italy. Frescobaldi has been producing wines in Tuscany for over 700 years and is the maker of some of the most iconic wines in the world, including Castelgiocondo, Niposano, Luce, Pomino, Massetto, Ornellaia, and Gorgona, to name a few. Welcome to the Grape Nation, Lamberto.
Hello,
it's
Sam.
Good.
Very nice to meet
you. It's good to see you again. I've had the good opportunity to meet up with Lamberto in the past. All right, so Lamberto, let's get right into this. Let's give people an idea. I'm sure a lot of people have drank your wines and know your wines, but they may not know the story. So you and your family have a very expansive past. Can you try your best to give us a brief history of Frescobaldi and also your journey in life and wine to where we are today, which is where the business is, and Cardona, which is what we're really going to talk about.
I'll try to do my best. So Frescobaldi, they appear around Florence, Tuscany, around the year 1000. They started on the river that cuts the town of Florence in two. They used to ship goods, and then they made, I guess, some fortune. And in the 1100 is when they bought land in the town of Florence. That land that they bought in the 1100, it's where yet is our home. So that is also something I would say that it is quite tells you about the history of my family. So since the 1100, in the same place, living in the same place since these days. Another, I would say, fun thing to know is that the first bridge built over the river Arno was built by an ancestor of mine called Lamberto in 1252. And a very nice guy. It was a toll bridge. You could pay and use the bridge, or you could swim. It was up to you.
Right.
And then my family became bankers, as Florentine families began, because they were silk traders before and wool traders. Then they became bankers, and then from banking they became also landowners. In the 1300, they began the wine production and selling the wine to the city initially, and then through Europe over the centuries. Long story short, we come to the 1800. And there, the family, my family Frescobaldi, thanks to a wedding to another old established family in Florence, that was the last of the women of this family called Albizzi. They got together, they married themselves, and so the Frescobaldi estate, they became much bigger. They had a lot of estate. One of them was Nipozzano. That is one of the places where we feel like that has been always in our family. That it's quite recent. It came in 1863 with this wedding.
Isn't that where you grew up?
Is that exactly where I grew up?
Isn't there a medieval castle on it?
It is a medieval castle. It's the place where I grew up. I understood when I was young that wine had to be drunk in moderation. And you have to go through those times. I had the opportunity of loving the countryside because I must say, I was very fortunate to live there. We had not only vineyards, the cellar just below our home, but also cows and dogs and
olive trees
and motorbikes of people that were working the vineyards and getting their motorbikes and going around all day long, and it was and fresh milk at night. It was really amazing. Unfortunately, we got to a moment that I have two older sisters and one younger sister, and my mother at the moment said to my father, I'm not doing the business of being a wife. I am a driver," because she was driving us up and down to the city, these four kids, and so we moved to the city, and when I finished my high school, I went to agricultural university in Florence, and then I had a great opportunity. My father talked to me about the great school that is in California, UC Davis, and
great
there,
wine school.
I jumped on a plane and I went to Davis, and there I stayed for 2.5 years. What an experience! And so that was how I was involved with wine.
But wait, in that moment when you got back from Davis, which I think you were getting to,
yeah,
because Davis is, the best wine school, agriculture school. When you got back, what did you do?
But first of all, when I got back, and I honestly I loved vineyards to some extent even more than loving wine. I think
The
that
agricultural
aspect. And when I came back from America, those days it was mandatory for every Italian boy, to join the army. So I joined the army for 1 year and a half. I became a lieutenant in the Carabinieri, that is a military police force. And there also I loved it. I enjoyed it so much that at the end of it, I was almost ready to join the army for good. And my father got a little bit worried and went up to my girlfriend and said, could you go and speak to my son and take him back home?
Talk some sense into him, yes.
And so that happened. And I was, we're talking about 1989. And in 89, I had a great opportunity when I came back home to, considering my studies and my passion for vineyards, to start to renovate the vineyards that we had. The vineyards that Frescobaldi and Italy in general had were planted in the 60s. Most of them were planted in the 60s with different goals. A goal of producing quantity. Those days, wine had to be inexpensive. We were not yet, we're talking about 60s and 70s, we're not really talking about quality with capital Q. It was, people were always asking you a better deal. So at that moment, instead, in 89 and then planting the first vineyards in 1990,
that's when the quality shifted, or the beginning of the shift, the intention.
Actually,
to shift.
we were a little bit ahead of others, and I remember I had to flip a coin and to decide the spacing of the vineyards. So I looked everything around me and between Burgundy and Bordeaux, and because Napa had vineyards, but they were a little bit high, a little bit loose spacing those days. Italy was very loose spacing because they wanted to be very efficient on cost. And we instead changed and we went to high density, and the quality, it boomed right away. We actually saw from the first initial harvest that we had from these vineyards that really something was happening. We were really with these new vineyards with low, vigorous rootstock, small berry varieties and clones. Really, we were really able to get the spirit of the soil, the identity of the location, because wine is all about identity.
Was the market ready? I mean, there were all these commodity wines previous to this. Now you took a turn towards quality, probably at a little higher cost. So were people ready for this kind of wine and maybe to pay a little more? Or you had to go out and sell that?
We had to go and sell that. But again, we were, I think, the right moment, because just a few years ago, before, in 1986, there was a terrible wine scandal in Italy.
Yes.
With an added alcohol called methanol that was added to wine, and it killed people. And
what was the intent of putting that in? Why?
The intent was to keep wines very cheap. And people understood there was somewhat of, we say in Italian, presa di coscienza, that means really understanding that you could not produce a good wine below the price of a soda.
Right.
And because that was the thing. Wine was
that cheap.
It was that cheap.
Yeah.
And so everything changed. And from there, the attention of the wine by the market and by restaurants, that they began introducing sommelier, and then wine critics.
There used to be 5 sommeliers in all of New York. Now there's 5 in one restaurant.
Yes.
I mean, the world has changed.
Indeed. And the wine changed. And at that moment, you had a person in front of you that you could speak to him about all the complexity, all the opportunities and fears of producing great wine. Because it's not always easy, and we have fears also ourselves. And our fears is, will the market understand what we're trying to accomplish in this glass of wine? Aren't we overspending to keep the quality as high as possible? Right. So we do have fears.
Sure.
But we've been lucky, and especially the U.S. market has been very generous, as often America is with Italian products. They loved Italian food and Italian wines, and
you're right about that. And a lot of collectors of your wines.
A lot of collectors. So.
Let me ask you something. So you went to Davis. You love the viticulture part of it, which is something you focused on. You said you upgraded all the vineyards and everything. Today, how involved in the viticulture are you? And then and now, how involved in the winemaking were you?
So I began as really only in the viticulture side, and then I had one great opportunity back in 1995. So 6 years after I began working in the family business, my father began a business relationship with the Mondavis,
right.
Producing a great high-end red wine in Montalcino, so central Tuscany, called Luce. And the counterpart for the Mondavi was Timondavi,
right.
And the other side was myself. So that moment I began much more involved with actually the wine.
That particular project,
wine,
right?
With the wine, and then after 3 years, considering that the result came out positive, I was appointed also for the other Frescobaldi wines.
Right.
So it was. I began with another project, and then I joined the family project.
So, which is a good segue to my next question. So you have 6 estates producing wines in Tuscany. You have wine partnerships. You have other wine properties in Italy. At this point, how do you oversee, manage, delegate all the responsibility? You're in a different position now.
Yeah.
And excellence, quality is very important to you.
Yes.
Now you're on top of it. How do you keep that going?
That is a very good question, and I now the estates as Frescobaldi, they're actually 7 because we recently got in the last one, a beautiful.
Which
place
is what?
It's called Perano, it's in Chianti Classico. And
okay.
It's
make that
just,
7.
Just makes that 7, but I have a nice team of people that have been working with me over the last 20 years.
Sure.
And I've been delegating. I'm actually quite bad on delegating things, but I had to force myself on doing that, and it's actually a win-win situation, I must say. But we get together very often, and one thing that also I allowed myself to do in 2015 from our historical location, our offices, they were in Florence. In the building of the family, the one that was bought in the 1100, the location. I actually moved the offices out. That was quite shocking for my father and my uncles. Why? I wanted to do that because the company was growing, and I moved them out and took them next to where we have vineyards. So when you open the window from the office, you see the vineyards.
Makes sense.
The company was growing. We were hiring great people, but some of them had not really a relationship with vineyards and with wine. And instead, being where we have our cellar, we can easily do tasting. Easily, you see the vineyards. You see how a vineyard moves through the year from winter when there are no leaves, and you see people pruning. Actually, we take out our people from sales and marketing, and we take them out to prune. We take them out to do shoot positioning, and we also do leaf removal with them, because we want strongly that they learn and they have the power of talking about what they are supposed to know about.
Right. You put them right in front of it, it's
exactly.
going to happen.
And that works.
So, for instance, with the 7 estates, is there an individual winemaker at each estate? Does some people oversee? I mean, how do you have that structure?
Every estate has its own team of people, its own tractors, its own
identity.
It's all about that. And then we have one winemaker, senior winemaker, Niccolo D'Afflitto, that overlooks all of them. And when there is a new project, we are always together, and we taste it as much as we can, and we try really to solve the big issues where we want to go with this new project. So, and then I must say also myself, I give myself time to go, and I just been to Champagne for a couple of days, only to visit cellars and to taste wine. I've been to a few months ago to Portugal.
Always observing.
And actually I went to Portugal to better understand how the quality of corks, where we buy corks.
Right.
Because cork is a very important part of our business.
Portugal is where most of the best corks come from.
Exactly.
And some great wines, by the way.
And some great wines. So I don't want to lose, and actually I need to be very much involved with all the technical parts, and then I allow myself some travels around the world. Like now I'm in New York, and to meet and to see the people with my eyes that are working with our wines.
So, you have all these estates. You explained how you stay on top of it. It's all about team. You become proactive. You move your office to the place so people can live it. But one of the most amazing things is the quality and the standards, your wines are held up to. I mean, I named a bunch. I didn't dwell on Massetto or Ornellaia, which, are some of the most iconic, wines. How do you keep those standards so high? I mean, of course, the right people spend money, and the vineyards, but more than coincidence and hard work sometimes.
One thing that maybe it's I think was one key of success, or maybe success is such a big word, but of a direction, is to always be a little bit unhappy of what you're doing.
Never be satisfied.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that puts you...
You're not a grouchy guy all the time, are you?
A
little? Okay.
Quite about.
All right.
And
okay. Honest.
Yeah, exactly. And so sometimes you wake up at night and say, shoot, what I missed, what should I do? Where should I go? What I can do better? And so you always have to have your eyes bright open and your ears clean to understand, to feel what's happening, and again, never be happy and satisfied of what you're doing. Let's look at it also I sometimes I share this with my team, saying, guys, how many harvests we do in our lifetime? If you look at that, it becomes a little bit sad because you do only 35, 40 harvests.
It's a lot.
Harvest a year. 40, one thing only 40 times.
Right. Oh, in that sense.
Only
yes.
in that sense. So if you blew one,
Right.
you blew it. So it's not you can go back.
You better be ready. You better be right.
So you have to be always there and take risk, but don't underestimate risk, because then when you ruined some fruit, you've ruined it.
You know, it's easy to say it and even pontificate it. It's more important to do it, and obviously, you know, with the wines from the Frescobaldi family, it's done.
It's done.
I want to ask you one more question before we get into Gorgona, which is a very, very interesting project of yours. How important is sustainability at Frescobaldi? And tell me what you're doing at your properties with this in mind. And, you know, are you moving towards organics and biodynamics, or is sustainability, you know, enough for you?
Yep. We began to be sustainable back in 1995.
Okay.
So we have we are entitled and registered as a sustainable company, and then back in mid 2006, I remember we began on being organic. And some of our estates are 100% organic and certified organic. Going through biodynamic before, and then becoming totally organic. We've had some years that easy, like for example last year, vintage 2017, hot and dry.
Perfect condition.
Perfect condition.
Right.
Also a baby could have done.
Right.
Organic,
you didn't have to sweat it out.
No kidding, you know. Wow. And this year instead, 2018, the vineyards look very nice, very healthy, very green. But we've had sometimes a shower per day, and that puts a little bit more pressure. But we're going through, and to be organic is and to be sustainable. It is very important for us. We have to have great care of the place where we live. We have to leave at a future generation a great place. Right. We have to be conscious of what we have all around us.
I agree. I'm glad to hear that. What you were alluding to before is 17 was a great year to grow. 18 was tougher. So when you stick to organics, there are things you can or won't do because you've committed to organics,
exactly.
Right? You know, if there's mold or wet or whatever.
Yeah.
So the challenge is really up and down.
The challenge is really up and down.
But with wines of your quality, you know, people are so fussy about organic food. You know, why wouldn't they want a wine that, you know, carries that quality too?
Look, one of the reasons that also became organic, because I don't agree on organic food that doesn't taste good. Because sometimes people are so focused on that they can accept something.
Right.
Maybe.
But it's organic.
It's organic.
Well, it sucks.
But that it doesn't make me happy.
I agree with you.
At all. We became organic step by step, beginning over 10 years ago, and seeing that the quality of the skin, especially of red variety grapes, where skin is essential to make great wine, became much more crunchy and thick, and we could do good maceration, good color extraction, and wines really enhanced their quality.
Right.
So becoming organic was a reason to make even greater wine.
Right. It's the right thing to do, like I said. Lamberto, we're going to take a quick break. We're talking to Lamberto Frescobaldi. When we come back, we're going to talk to Lamberto about a very interesting wine project he's working on called Gorgona. You're listening to The Grape Nation on Heritage Radio Network.
You're visiting the in-laws this weekend. They've asked you to bring wine. You need a bottle that says, I'm laid back enough that I didn't think about this choice for hours. But also, I've graduated from $2 Chuck, proving I can provide for your daughter and our future children. Where to go from here? Just ask Vivino. Vivino knows feeling pressured in the wine aisle can sour the whole experience. But with the largest wine inventory, Vivino gives you the best price on personalized picks based on your taste profile, then ships them right to your door. Scan wines, compare reviews, save your favorites, and even get unlimited free shipping with Vivino Premium, plus a free 30-day trial. So, when that next visit rolls around, you know exactly what that dry Alsatian Riesling says about your commitment to your mother-in-law's Sunday roast. Visit vivino.com/heritage to stock up. Vivino. Wine made easy.
All right, we're back. We're back with my guest, Lamberto Frescobaldi. We're sitting here in New York. Lamberto, you make some of the greatest wines in the world. I alluded to that earlier. But you have also been making a wine at a prison. So let's talk about Gorgona a little, which is really, I would talk to you anytime at a park bench at midnight, but I wanted to talk to you about this particular project because it's very unique. So to set it up, just again, you have to tell me a quick story about how this wine came about and why you chose to do Gorgona, because I think in the end it's something you had to want to do.
Mm-hmm. So we have to go back some years. We are talking about the end of July 2012.
Okay.
I received an email that was, we all of us, we received a bunch of emails, and so what we do often. If you don't have a good firewall, you're you're canching hundreds of them a day. And one was actually quite funny. It was like the state prison of Livorno. Blah, blah, blah. There was a state prison. They did something wrong.
Right.
And this was the director of the island, of the prison, is asking help to do a better wine of what they are recently doing. And they were explaining that it was on an island, it's 20 miles off the coast of Tuscany, and the vineyard size was 2 acres. So you look at this, it's a prison. It's 20 miles off the coast, so a small island. It's an off-limit island. Nobody can go part of being...
People equate it to Alcatraz out on the West Coast, a prison island, inaccessible.
It's a prison island. And 2 acres, you say, next.
Right.
And but I don't know why this little bit remained and I was talking to my wife Eleonora and said, Eleonora, I got this they see Mayo, and I'm there. I don't know. And she said, "It's a prison. You should be careful." And I said, "Yeah, my life. However, we have a good life. We are happy. We have great kids. And do we need anything more than what we can have? I guess not. And I need to call these people." And she said, "Yeah, okay, go for it, but be careful." And so there I call, and they said to me, "Yeah, this is a prison, and like to do better wine. Right now we're doing wine, but we're not happy about the quality." And there I asked, "Can I come to the island?" They said to me, "Yeah, sure." And that was August the 3rd, 2012, and there I go to the island, and I went to visit this 2-acre vineyard where there was an inmate that was actually having great care of this vineyard, and I understood that this inmate had a vineyard back home, and he was sentenced to jail for more than 25 years. And then I went to the little cellar, and there was another guy, and I tasted the wine, and as you do professionally, you taste, you put the wine in your mouth, and then you spit. You don't swallow, you spit. And there I tasted all the wines that they had in tanks and in the barrels. And then I turned around. The police guy that was together with me wasn't there any longer, and it was myself and the inmate. And I said, "Okay, that's a good start." Okay. And then so there we leave, and I say, "Let's go down to the little village again." And there we were walking one next to each other. A little bit difficult to talk about, what a lovely place, what are you doing? None of that stuff. So.
How big of a
the island
group? How big of a group was dedicated to the wine project?
To the wine project, it was only few, like 4 people.
Okay.
And the inmates those days were 55. The island all itself is 400 acres of land, but pretty much is a rocky place. And then this guy, in a certain moment, looks into my eyes and puts his hand on my arm. And looks into my eyes, and I said, "Okay, let's see now what happens." And this guy looks at me and says, "How do you like the wine?" I said, "I don't know." And I started, a lot of BS, saying how beautiful it was, blah, blah, blah. So this guy comes up again to my eye and looks in my eyes and says, "Why you spit them all?"
I had no idea why.
And I said, "Okay, guy. Okay, I have to excuse myself. One thing is tasting, one thing is drinking. You taste, you spit. You drink, you swallow." So this guy again says to me, "I need to learn a lot of things from you." And there everything began. I started to go to the island initially every 20 days.
Wow, frequently.
Very frequently. I got to know the inmates. The inmates have... some crimes that are not pleasant, but no sexual crimes, no mafia crimes.
Right. That prison didn't have mafia.
No
or
mafia,
sexual,
no
right.
sexual.
Just hard criminals in a way.
So yeah, exactly. But people that they want to come back to life. And talking to the director of the island, a lady. She said to me, "Mr. Frescobaldi, don't fall in love with the island, with the sea, with the scenery. Don't fall in love if you're able to make good wine or not. But keep in mind one thing. These people that they were going to work at the project, and by the way, these people are hired by us, and they're paid by the hour like any other person, so they make a good amount of money at the end of the year. Those people," she said to me, "one day, no matter what, they're going to be out. Remember this. And if you're able to do something for them, that you'll prevent them to do a mistake again, this is going to be a win-win situation for all of us, for the community, for all of the people. of course, you're spending money, but you're giving back to the community something. And if you get this clearly in mind, you better understand what you're doing. So somebody said to me, but would you like them not to go to jail? No. If you do a mistake, you go to jail.
Right.
You're sentenced to jail for 20 years, you do 20 years. 30 years, you do 30 years. But then, if you do this wrong thing in your life, you're 20 years old, and you're sentenced to jail for 30 years, at the age of 50, you're out. So,
Second chances.
second chances. What do you want him to do? Another mistake? Or you want him to give back? Because let's also keep in mind, these people that are in jail, there is quite of a cost on the community. They cost a lot of money on the community. So if they step out and they start working with their taxes, they're going to pay back the community also. So it's a win-win. So if you start to get in mind on this, you not only are going to be able to do a great wine, these people are going to love what they're doing, because a bottle of wine can be shipped around the world, and inside a bottle of wine there is the big effort and big passion of the people that are working around a bottle of wine. The bottle of wine it's terrific because there is so much passion inside there, and it can be shipped around the world. It can be aged. Right. It can be enjoyed when it's young and when it's mature. And these people
so as you
actually see...
As you connected with them individually,
yes,
you realized, I can help these people here and help them with a life outside. That became an important end goal.
It became
for you, right?
important, and Sam, what really every time it was really hitting me personally, it was when I was leaving the island at night, at evening.
You could leave.
I could leave.
Right.
That is something that you do not value freedom.
Take it for granted.
And don't take it for granted.
You really were in the thick of that, so you understood it. Let's talk about the wine a little. So I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions. What grapes are we using? It's a white wine. We know they're grown on a 1 hectare, 2 acre area. Tell me about that little climate, the soil and all that, how it differs from other things. One of the grapes is Vermentino, which I think a lot of people are familiar with. But there's another grape that I want you to tell me about.
Yep.
So tell me a little about, terroir, climate, winemaking.
So let's put Gorgona. And by the way, if you Google it, you will see it. If you then zoom on the island, you will actually be able to see the vineyards. Because now there are actually more vineyards. From 2 acres, we are almost close to 5, because we planted in 2015 and 2017 more acres. The island is one of the 6 islands in front of Tuscany, Archipelago Toscano, the Tuscan Islands. Gorgona is the island that people don't really know nothing about it, because since 1869 has been a jail, and it's forbidden to go there on a private tour. It's a volcanic island, so volcanic soils. The vineyard is east facing. It gets a little in a cradle, so the salty winds don't hit it.
Protected.
It's protected
based on the geography.
Based on the geography. When you have also, you would think that being in an island, you get a lot of sun. Yes, but then also you get good temperature scorching, because at night the sea mitigates the climate. So the vineyards are all in dry farming. 2 varieties, as you said. Vermentino, that is one of the classic varieties planted in the coastline of Tuscany. and Ansonica. Ansonica is another white grape that I've seen over my time, over my life, in other places through Tuscany, and if it's planted in deep soil, it does a very big cluster with very not very amusing wine.
Okay.
But wine is about soil, is not and location, less so about variety. So Ansonica, planted in this very rocky volcanic soil, it does an amazing, very mineral wine with the cluster that initially is quite large, but then it shrinks. Meanwhile, it's getting to harvest, and also the alcohol level doesn't skyrocket. It's around 12.8,
Very
13,
drinkable.
very drinkable.
Right.
But with an amazing minerality. So these wines can really age.
Good food
and
wine.
It's food wine, and these grapes, of course, are picked in small cradles, and we take it to the cellar. It's gently goes to a press. It's drained, and it's fermented both in stainless steel tank and in barrels. Now we take them there over time. They are 1-year-old barrels because we do not want the oak to cover in any circumstances the unique of this aroma that the island is able to give. And we keep this wine in between barrels and oak, between barrels and stainless steel until.
So the blend is a mixture of the wine held in stainless and an oak.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
not all stainless,
It's
which
not
could
all
be
stainless.
steely
Yeah.
and high mineral. It's not oaky,
No.
100%. So you
And,
like that blend.
And then there is a moment then we have to go to bottle. And bottling this wine in the island would be very complicated because taking the empty, there is not a real ship that goes up and down. So we.
How many bottles are you bottling? Let's
we-
start with that. So
yeah,
people have an
we
idea.
do a total of 4,000 bottles.
Okay.
And so when there is the moment of shipping the wine out, we need to go. We take the wine, we put it in barrels, and we ship it with barrels on the barrel.
Ah,
So the barrels are used like it was used in the past
I got that.
to transport the wine, and it comes a boat. We put these barrels on the boat, and they're taken, leaving late at night, the island of Gorgona, and it gets really early in the morning in Livorno. There we take the barrels, we put them in a truck, each of them, and we take it to the. It's.
If you had to do this with every wine you made, you'd go
let's
crazy.
let's say yes, but
It's worth the project.
It's worth the project. And one thing I'd like to say more: the wine is never tasted by anybody until the June after, almost 1 year after, and we take it back. We take some bottles back to the island, and we have some guests, and the inmates can taste the wine that day.
Great.
Only that day.
That's great. So at least they get to taste it once. So how many vintages have you made? 6 or 7 or 8?
We made already 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17.
Okay.
So there are 6, and in a few months we will have 18, and there you go.
We're going to open a bottle, if you're
Yes.
okay with that, and I want to talk to you about it. But before we do that, while you're opening, I wanted to ask you some questions with our wine list. But I debated whether to ask you this question or not, because I don't want it to be incriminating. It is not an inexpensive wine, number one. Number two, I know you do this, and it's not a venture where it's not a get-rich-quick venture.
No.
Quite the opposite.
No.
You know, so the cost of the wine, I guess it's because of all of the circumstances you explained, right? All the shipment and all of that.
The wine itself, people that have enjoyed the wine over years, they bought it back. So I think that's a very important message, that who buys it, buys it again. And so this is one thing very important. And then you said it's not an expensive wine. It is actually a very expensive wine. Very expensive. It is one of the expensive wines. It is actually also difficult to open the bottle because there is a foil all around, and then there is a gomalaka thing, and you have to really make your way through. But when you know how to open it, it's quite easy.
You're pretty good at it.
I'm quite good.
Fourth or fifth time.
And and then, when we went to the market, it's not that I want to make any kind of profit, and it will never happen that.
Well, you explained your profit motive earlier.
Yeah.
You know, with the prisoners coming out of the system and all of that.
Exactly.
Creating some self-esteem. I mean, that the value there, and I know you explained early on why you jumped into it.
And then one thing that, however, the price that this wine has on the market also makes for us easier to explain what it is.
Right.
If it's a certain price that people ask why, and so you explain what it is.
Right.
Then the curiosity makes you buy the bottle. You taste the wine, and the magic thing is that people are buying it again. So that's
the most important.
There,
that's the highest compliment.
Yeah, what is inside there means that the price is right.
All right, so we're going to taste it in a few minutes. But before we get to that, because we'll spend a few minutes evaluating it and you'll explain certain things to me, I have a thing on the show called the wine list. I ask my guests about 5 questions about their personal wine preferences. And, we'll go through this quickly because I'm kind of interested in what a guy like you is drinking now and what you like and all that. So we don't need long answers. First question is, what are you drinking now? Are you drinking anything seasonally? Are you trying anything? You said you were in Champagne. What's on the table now that wasn't there a month ago? And what are you trying now?
I must say I'm very curious.
Okay.
And
you'll taste anything.
And
so what lately?
Lately I've been tasting quite a lot of sparkling champagne-style wine.
Is there a reason for that?
There is a reason always for that.
Can you explain quickly?
Yeah, because some years ago, from an estate that was owned by an ancestor of mine, that she came from Auxerre in Burgundy, and she planted Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, and for over 150 years it was used, this Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, to produce a still wine.
Still wine.
In 2006, I began producing instead a method, classic method.
What is it called?
It's called Leonia.
Right.
Leonia as the name of my ancestor, that she was actually Leonie, and Leonie in Italy renamed Leonia. And she was the lady that she was French, and also recalling and reminding her, we made this wine, and it's I'm actually quite happy with what he's doing, but there's always some challenges.
Sparkling wines. All right, next question. Does Lamberto Frescobaldi have a favorite wine and food pairing? Is there something you love? You just go ooh ah when you have it?
I'm so bad. Unfortunately, I'm not in a good fit. I should do more workout.
You look okay.
I love food. I love
so what's a good
taste,
combo?
And when I come to the States, I always love steak houses. So great steak. With great reds in general.
Could be
Sangiovese, could be Brunello,
could be Cali Cabs.
It could be
Bordeaux.
It could
Okay.
be. It could be good.
So steak,
You know
and
what?
Steak and a good red wine is classic.
And again, when you love wine, when you really love wine, truly, you love to change wine.
I agree.
And
becomes boring too.
And when I say this, and I say, when you really love something, you like to change it. And my wife always tells me, "It's only you're talking about wine." Yes, of course,
Right.
You're talking about wines.
All right, so that's a good one. Do you have a favorite wine restaurant and/or bar? I guess I would probably ask you to answer that any way you want, but probably either in Florence. Now, the family has a very famous, terrific restaurant, so we'll include that, and cantinas. But is there any place, bar, wine restaurant, fancy, unfancy, that just through the years you go?
There are a number of places.
And I don't want you to incriminate anyone or leave anyone out.
Yeah, exactly.
But there's got to be a place that.
Yeah, there are a number of places where I like to go from sushi to, because my kids love sushi.
Right.
I love tempura, more than raw food.
Good sushi.
Good sushi
around Florence.
There was good sushi.
That's it. That's a good answer. Unusual.
And
sushi in Florence.
And then we have a good Asian community in Florence.
Yeah.
But then also more Florence is known as the trattoria style restaurant. Like, so you talk from Quattro Leoni to Bucalapi to Coccolezzone,
all great.
And Giovanni and Latini, but they are amazing restaurants.
There's no shortage of that.
No.
All right, those are good ones. Can you tell me, and it's hard to do one, but if you have one, if it's a few, favorite all-time wine? Is there a wine at any point in your life that you had, and it doesn't have to be the fanciest. A lot of times it's situational, when we got engaged, or, it doesn't have to be a 61 Romani Conti or, the first Ornellaia.
Yeah.
What's a favorite all-time wine of yours?
I don't know if it's said that the guy that repairs the shoes has its own shoes, that there is always a hole in it. My cellar at home is disaster.
Okay.
I never have wine in my cellar, and when I have some guests at home, I always, since I don't have my wines, because I always run out of them, I started some years ago giving friends wines. So they come at my home, but I give them an experience of wines around the world. And this is also instrumental for me to appreciate more of what they're doing.
It's a nice thing.
And do I have preferred wines? Yes, but at the same time, our palate changes over time.
Right. You've said that already.
And what you like when you're a kid, you probably will not like it any longer, or not as much when you're in your 30s and then 50s, so we change constantly. And I'm there always chasing the wine that have not yet met, and look forward to finding.
Fair enough. That was an extraordinarily eloquent non-answer, because you didn't name one wine, but you made a very specific point, and I like it. So we're going to move on. The last question I ask, because I have a lot of sommeliers, wine writers, and all that. I usually ask them, our audience is always looking for wines of great value and great quality. So I always say recommend a white and a red for around $15, $20. I don't want to get specific with that, but what I want you to do is tell my listeners what's the best quality, best value Frescobaldi wine on the shelves. I don't want to use the word cheapest, I want the best value for the best quality. Give me a red, give me a white. Is it a Chianti?
For the red, it's easy for me to say because it comes out right away on my mind, the wine where I grew up. So maybe there is a little bit of something ongoing there. That is Nipozzano.
Yes. A Chianti.
It's a Chianti Rufina from a smaller area of Chianti. It's called Rufina, and it's a reserve wine. And it's lovely to age it. Just this morning, by the way, I received an email sent by a guy at our info at Frescobaldi, saying, guys, I want to share with you, and he sent it a picture, and it was forwarded to me this morning, a bottle of Nipozzano 1945.
Wow.
And this guy saying it was amazing.
It held up.
And so Nipozzano goes back. We have our personal cellar there. We have our oldest bottles that we have in our cellar go back to 1864. So that is for the red.
Give me a white.
And for the white, again, it's a place where when I was a kid I used to go there, and it's called Pomino. Pomino.
Pomino.
Yeah, Pomino.
Right, and that's one of the estates.
That's one of the estates. It's up in the mountains, and it's a specific appellation. It's a DOC Pomino. We are the only producer there of this appellation, and this wine is made mainly with Chardonnay. Up in the mountain, very crispy, unoaked.
Unoaked. Okay. So for people who don't like a heavily oaked, the Pomino.
And so this one should be around $20.
That's a great price. That's exactly what I was looking for. So the Pomino and the Nipozzano. All right, Lamberto, let's taste the Gorgona. Every week on my show, we taste a different wine on air. A lot of times I bring a wine in. A lot of times a guest will bring a wine in. It made total sense for you to bring in the Gorgona. What vintage is this?
This is the Gorgona 2016.
All right, so we're drinking a 2016 Gorgona. As we said, it's made off the coast of Livorno in Tuscany. It is a blend of the Vermentino and Ansonica grape. Now's the time to tell you the wine retails for about €80. What I wanted to ask you is, keep in mind we're in the States. Where do we get it? At better wine stores, restaurants? I know it's limited because of bottle.
It is very limited because I believe that in the States you don't get more than 600 bottles.
Okay, so it's a very special wine in what it is, because you're making it at a prison. It's low production, and even less of it comes to the States. So you're going to have to work hard to find it, but you'll find it.
Yes,
all right, so let's evaluate this. It's a gorgeous, pretty deep, yellow.
Yeah.
It's got a beautiful color to it. Really nice. Stands out. Tell me what you get on the nose, Lamberto.
Going back to what was your question, this is it's a natural park site. So this is so no chemistry is allowed on the island. So this is organic, and.
I'm not spitting today.
No, we're speaking backwards.
Okay.
And this, it's the two varieties are picked in different moments. The
Ansonica and the Vermentino, just because.
Yeah, there is a difference on timing of maturity. We don't care for to do overripening fruit, So this wine here is around this, particularly the bottle tells 13, but this is actually 12.8 because in the Italian law, those you have to put the higher level, so it's 12.8.
Tell me the Vermentino and Sonica blend. Is it predominantly one versus the other? Does
No,
it change yearly?
pretty much it's 50-50.
50-50, okay.
And over time, the Vermentino will become more predominant because the newer vineyards that we've planted have Vermentino.
Right.
Because the Vermentino has a much more of a personality in this case.
So tell me what you get on the nose. Give me your descriptive.
Yeah.
I'm sure it changes a little each year, but there's a
consistent
consistent nose to a
consistent.
Gorgona.
There is a consistency on this wine over time, and this is the 2016 harvest. So one has to again remember the kind of the harvest and where we are. But in general, so let's don't focus too much on the fact that can be too much sun or some rain. That is quite not enough. Never during the summer there, but the sea mitigates and gives some humidity, and the vineyards are just perfect through the season. And putting your nose, first of all, you get a very complex nose. You are entering inside the wine, and there is not an evident aroma, but there is a group of
I
aroma.
agree. It's not citrusy or floral, or it's a very blended, complex nose.
Complex nose.
That's a good point, because you always struggle to say, what is that? It doesn't have to be that.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
could be all together.
And sometimes there are some simple wine that the reason is actually to be simple is that to make people easily recognizable. Instead, for when you have complexity, the complexity, for me, the thing is that it puts you a smile in your mouth, in your face.
It does.
Because you are intrigued by it.
It's going in, you're intrigued, and then when it's in the mouth, it's definitely.
So
it has
you have some citrus, but also you have some honey.
Yes.
In this one here.
But not the sweetness, just the good part of honey.
Yeah, and then the sage, because here there is a lot of.
There's that herbal aspect, but not overpowering. The mouthfeel is, medium plus. It's plush in the mouth. It's got a beautiful mouthfeel. Agree? Very mouth coating.
Very mouth coating.
Long finish.
And also with some saltiness.
Yes, definitely from its surroundings. In a very pleasant way.
Yes.
It works its way in because there's nowhere else for it to go.
And it really fills up your mouth, but at the same time it leaves a nice clean palate.
Very clean, very crisp.
And this one here.
Do the nose descriptors carry over to the palate descriptors? Give me your palate descriptors on this.
I would say so. That
there's a little of that herbal, a little of the citrus.
Yes, you have some herbal, some citrus, some also
salinity.
The salinity is definitely there, and you have a very intriguing, long finish.
Very long.
Very long.
Very mouth-filling from the front of your mouth to the back, which
and
is nice.
The oak doesn't taste
No.
absolutely. So the oak is not in our way, although this wine has been aged in the oak, but it's not on our way, and I think this is actually very positive about it. You can feel that this wine is wine that can be aged. Just recently, We did a vertical tasting from the first vintage. This is, as we said before, is 2016. And we have a small collection. We kept it in the cellar of every vintage we did. And 2012, we just recently tasted. In February, it was spectacular.
It's holding up well.
It's holding up. So this wine is
making
really
a wine to age.
Yes.
Tell me, this wine in front of us, what foods would we pair this with? What regionally, and then anywhere else?
I'm, in the sense, I'm a very classic, and I love to put this wine with how you say, crevette, with fish.
Okay.
Grilled. It can be grilled, but it can be also boiled.
Okay. Like a fish stew or
fish stew or fish. There is a recipe that is done often in Italy that we call it is cooked under the salt.
So it's baked in a salt cover. And you crack this
and you
up.
crack it.
Right.
So the fish is
the salinity of the wine. Not that the fish is salty.
No, the wine is not salty.
Nor is the fish, even though it's buried in salt.
But it's very careful on this kind of recipe. Really keeps the taste of the fish as pure as possible.
Moist and everything.
And moist, and it's terrific. And you do not get sometimes the recipe overpower the dish itself. But again, this wine can also be enjoyed with some good cheese and mozzarella. So
Agreed.
think of having a nice large mozzarella. You slice it and you eat it with your hands.
The gorgona in one hand, the mozzarella in the other.
Exactly. So
I'll
sometimes
sign up for that.
You do not need
anything
to
too
go,
fancy. Simple.
To a 3-star Michelin.
But good mozzarella.
But a good mozzarella.
All right, Lamberto, we have to wrap up. So we just tasted the Gorgona, which we talked a lot about.
Yep.
The 2016.
Yes.
The Lamberto makes about 4,000 bottles. A fraction of that comes to the States. But you could find it. So look out for it. It's Gorgona. That's the Gorgona. And there are some past vintages. If you have a question, suggestion, wine happening, or event, hit me up at sam@thegrapenation.com. That's sam@thegrapenation.com. Follow us on Facebook at The Grape Nation. I'm going to post Lamberto's wine list answers, and I'll post more information on our weekly wine sip, which was the 2016 Gorgona, on our social media sites. You could follow us on Instagram at SBenRuby, and now you can follow The Grape Nation as a hashtag. On Twitter, we're at BenRuby. Subscribe to The Grape Nation. God bless you, Lamberto. Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify. Write a review if you enjoy the show. Lamberto, where can we find... We talked about where we could find Gorgona. Where could we find... Best place to find more information about Frescobaldi family of wines? Website,
indeed.
Okay.
Yeah, always these days.
I've been on it a lot lately, and it's very rich. It's very deep. We talked about the 6, now 7 estates. They're all prominently featured. As I said earlier, Lamberto makes Massetto, which is truly one of the most prized wines in the world. Ornellaia, same there. So you can find information on all of that stuff. So I want to thank our guest, Lamberto Frescobaldi, from Marchese de Frescobaldi, for coming in, talking about Frescobaldi wines, and sharing the Gorgona with us. Gorgona. And I want to thank our engineer, Vitor. I want to thank everyone at the Heritage Radio Network. Our annual Summer Drive Fund has commenced. We need you, the listener, to help and donate to the Heritage Radio Network. You could do that at heritageradionetwork.org/donate. You could skip a bottle of wine this week and maybe make a donation, but go out and buy the Gorgona. So we want to thank you for helping out Heritage Radio. I'm Sam Ben Ruby, and you've been listening to The Grape Nation.
Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. For our freshest content and to hear about exclusive events, subscribe to our newsletter. Enter your email at the bottom of our website, heritageradionetwork.org. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at heritage_radio. Heritage Radio Network is a nonprofit organization driving conversations to make the world a better, fairer, more delicious place. And we couldn't do it without support from listeners like you. Want to be a part of the food world's most innovative community? Rate the shows you like, tell your friends, and please join our community by becoming a member. Just click on the beating heart at the top right of our homepage. Thanks for listening.